Gonzaga didn't need Graham Ike against Seattle or Pepperdine, but it won't be nearly as easy to get by the San Francisco Dons on Saturday if the big man is still on the shelf.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Well, folks, Gonzaga hosts San Francisco final home game against the Dons while they're still both members of the West Coast Conference, looking for their 34th straight win over USF, if you can believe it. We're going to preview this San Francisco team. Haven't quite been as good as they were the last couple of years, but still a dangerous team. We're also going to talk about some of the keys to victory for Gonzaga, including stopping star sophomore Tyrone Riley. Of course, we'll also talk about Graham Ike's status, whether we think he will play against this USF team. We're going to close out the show and the week talking Drew Timme, who has been flat out excellent the last 5 or so games for the Los Angeles Lakers, drawing praise from NBA icon and current teammate LeBron James. We'll give some other Zags in the NBA updates as well. We start the show getting you ready for Saturday's afternoon, early evening matchup against this San Francisco team. They will face them at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. So folks, be ready to tune in a little bit earlier than you're used to. This game will be broadcast on the CBS Sports Network. First matchup against the Dons this season. Again, they've already played Seattle twice. They've played Pepperdine twice, but just getting their first crack at this USF team. They will face them again on the road, in air quotes, on February 18th. That game will be at the Chase Center, which will be the third straight year they've played Gonzaga. San Francisco's played Gonzaga at the Chase Center. It does count as a road game in terms of the quad rankings and the net rankings, which is good news for Gonzaga because right now that means that would be a quad 2 road game for Gonzaga, despite being at what is much more of a neutral site environment. Currently, Gonzaga boasts a 33-game winning streak over the San Francisco Dons. The last loss was back on February 18th, 2012. As somebody who was at Gonzaga from 2009 to 2013, we lost to San Francisco every single one of those years. So feels like USF is a team that routinely beats Gonzaga, but in fact, it has not happened now in well over a decade. Apologies to those of you around my age who feel very old from that statement. I can commiserate with you on that. No update right now on the injuries for Gonzaga. What we know is that Mark Few was asked about Braden Huff, Graham Ike, and the ankle/cramping injury for Davis Fogel at the end of the game. He said it was just cramps for Fogel. He said a lot of cramps, which is not great for him in the moment, but very likely not going to impact him for Saturday's game, barring some kind of further investigation that yields something different, which as of this recording is not something that we're expecting. So Fogel should be fine. Braden Huff, he said there's no update, but obviously we're not expecting Huff back until at the earliest mid-February. So there's no chance he's playing in this game on Saturday. As for Graham Ike, that's the one that's very much up in the air. Ike has been listed as day-to-day since he missed the game on Saturday against Seattle U. It was pretty much expected that Graham Ike would not play on Wednesday against Pepperdine because why would you play him unless he was 100% in a game you expected to be able to win without him? And of course, Gonzaga still picked up a 24-point win without either Ike or Huff. Mark Few after the game basically said that Ike, it's about how much pain he's able and willing to tolerate. So it doesn't sound like he's going to just heal and not have injury to his ankle. It's going to continue to hurt and bother him, but right now they're trying to get him to they got the boot still on him and they're trying to get him to a point where he's not putting weight on it and letting it rest and recover as much as he's able to before he gets back out on the floor. I'm guessing the game time decision will be how much pain is he in, how likely is there for any kind of re-injury if he plays in this game, and how much Gonzaga feels like they need him against this San Francisco team. So let's talk about this San Francisco team. The Dons 13-8 overall on the year, 5-3 in conference play. That puts them in 4th place behind Gonzaga, Santa Clara, and St. Mary's. The Dons have a couple of nice wins, couple top 100 wins over Minnesota and Mississippi State. Always a good year when you can say you beat a Big Ten and a SEC team, albeit not exactly the strongest teams in either conference, but still won both these games away from San Francisco, beat Mississippi State in Mississippi. So nice to see the couple of wins there, but they have some bad losses. Really, they have one horrendous loss, and I mean horrendous loss. They lost to North Alabama at home. This was a bye game. Ken Pom has North Alabama currently 335th in the country. This is one of the 30 worst teams in college basketball, and they traveled, 3/4 of the way across the country to play San Francisco at their house and beat them. That is, we talked about Santa Clara's loss to Loyola Chicago being an egregious one. This is worse than that. This is a quad 4 loss that is the absolute deal breaker for San Francisco having any chance of getting an at-large bid. I mean, their resume is not good enough, even if you take that game out, but it is a absolute devastating heartbreaker for San Francisco that they lost this game. They also lost to Memphis on the road and St. Louis on the road. Neither of those are particularly bad losses. Also have neutral site losses to Colorado and Nevada. Again, none of those losses, all 4 of those losses are not that bad. Better San Francisco teams probably would have gone 2-2 in that stretch, maybe 3-1, maybe even 1-3. But to go 0-4 in that stretch and tack on a hideous loss to North Alabama, that's just not what this program has been. It's been a disappointing season for Coach Chris Gerlofson and San Francisco. In conference play, they have wins over Seattle and Washington State. Fine, but they lost at Oregon State, who has not been good. They lost at LMU, who has been struggling. They lost at home to San Francisco or to St. Mary's, which is obviously not a bad loss, but still, you want to give them a game at home, and San Francisco wasn't able to do that. Ken Pom currently has the Dons at number 106. So despite a not as good resume as we're used to, they're still in a pretty good spot. Now, in the preseason, they were 84th, so they have fallen in the Ken Pom rankings, but 106 is far from terrible. They're a balanced team in the sense that they have the 113th ranked offense and the 114th ranked defense. Tempo-wise, we know this about them. They play slow. That remains the case. 298th in the country, according to Tempo. This is a quad 3 game for Gonzaga at home and will likely stay in that quad 3 territory. San Francisco, again, 0-2 in those quad 1 games, 3-3 in quad 2, 3-2 in quad 3, and 6-1 in quad 4. Ken Pom projects a 19-point victory for Gonzaga, but I suspect Ken Pom's data doesn't really factor in the Graham Ike of it all at this point. Again, Gonzaga will be without Braden Huff. We know that, but we don't know whether they will be without Graham Ike. Talk a little bit more about this Dons team. They're led by All-WCC first-team candidate Ryan Beasley. He has been fantastic this season. He is the best player on this team, one of the best players in the conference, averaging nearly 15 points a game, 3.5 assists, over 3 rebounds, 82% from the line. Not as efficient as a scorer outside of that, about 52% on twos, which isn't bad for a 5'11" guard, and then just 31% from 3. He takes a lot of threes, but he hasn't been very efficient from the perimeter this year. Still one of the better guards in this conference and will be a nice test defensively for both Mario Saint-Superi and Braden Smith. Also want to mention former Gonzaga target Mookie Cook. Mookie Cook was a 5-star McDonald's All-American recruit out of Jefferson High School in Oregon. He was recruited by Gonzaga as well as Oregon, as well as a couple other places. Ended up committing to Oregon, spent 2 years with the Ducks, but was riddled with injuries. Only appeared in 29 games, averaged barely a point per game. Hit the transfer portal, went to San Francisco, and has been very, very good for the Dons, but he has not played since December 28th. First game for San Francisco in conference play against Seattle. He played in that game, has not played since then. I got word from Coach Chris Gerlofson. He actually texted while I'm recording this show and said that Mookie is a game time decision. Had said previously that they are hoping to have him back for this game. They haven't played in about a week, so haven't seen how close he is to returning, but obviously that would be great news for San Francisco and would put Gonzaga a little bit behind the sticks in the sense that they haven't been able to scout this team recently because Cook has not played in nearly a month. Other names to note for this team, Tyrone Riley IV. We will talk about him in the second segment, so more on him later in the show. David Fuchs, transfer from Oakland, averaging 12 points, 7.5 boards. Really good at getting to the free throw line, and he's a forward, forward. He's not really a center, but he's a forward. And so he is going to do his darndest to try to get Jalen Worley and or Ismaila Diagne in foul trouble. He shoots nearly 7 free throws a game. Now, he's not very good at the free throw line. 63%, worse than Tyon Grant-Foster, but he's good at drawing contact and against a front court that will for sure be limited without Braden Huff, maybe without Graham Ike. That could be a big factor in this one. Freshman legend Smiley has the best name in the WCC, one of the best names in college basketball. He's also a pretty darn good basketball player, averaging 7 points, 56% on 2-pointers, 35% from 3, just hung 16 on LMU a few days ago. Barry Wang is back. He's been with them for a couple of years, averaging about 8 points, 3 boards, 38.5% from 3. He had 27 on the road against Pepperdine a few games ago. And then Guillermo Diaz-Graham, he's their 7-footer. If you've seen the Diaz-Graham brothers, Guillermo plays for San Francisco, Jorge plays for Oregon State. They both came up at Pitt and were teammates for 2 years. Interestingly transferred to different schools way across the country, both in the WCC. They look like Chet Holmgren. It's very bizarre how similar they look to Chet Holmgren in a lot of ways. If you haven't seen them and you watch for the first time, you're going to be a little alarmed when you first see Guillermo. He's a good player, not quite, Chet Holmgren. Not that there's anything wrong with not being at that level. Averaging about 5.5 points, 3.5 boards, 37.5% from 3 for the 7-footer Guillermo with this Dons team. Well, folks, Gonzaga needs to find the outside shot and secure second chance opportunities while containing that superstar sophomore Tyrone Riley IV. We'll talk about that and more coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets that you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts. Whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching, every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make the picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs are rolling. If you want to talk some Pac-12 after dark action, Utah State on the road in Fort Collins taking on Colorado State. I know it's a Mountain West game, but it's a future Pac-12 game. The Aggies favored by 3.5, even on the road. Definitely one to check out on Friday night. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every game day. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, still part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. And we're still getting you folks ready for Gonzaga's matchup on Saturday against the San Francisco Dons, their first of 2 regular season matchups against USF this year. The game will be 5 p.m. on Saturday on the CBS Sports Network. We're going to talk about our 5 keys to victory. What are the things Gonzaga needs to do to pick up their 34th straight win over the Dons and stay undefeated in the WCC this year? Key number 1 for Gonzaga, you got to find that outside shot. For a couple of reasons. Number 1, San Francisco is a good defensive team on the perimeter. They are holding teams to under 32% from 3. It's 31.6% to be exact. That is the 84th best mark in college basketball. So not like elite, but under 32%, about 31.5%. That's pretty good defense from San Francisco against 3-point perimeter shooters this year. Meanwhile, Gonzaga's on the season shooting over 36%, which is 54th in college basketball. I know it feels like Gonzaga hasn't been that great of a 3-point shooting team this year. They don't shoot very many of them, continue to shoot on a low volume because of how reliant they are on getting the ball down low on the block. However, they will not have Braden Huff in this game. We do not know if they will have Graham Ike in this game, although it is fair to think that even if Graham plays in this game, that maybe he is limited, maybe he doesn't play as many minutes as we're used to seeing, which means that Gonzaga's shot diet is going to look a little different. Since Gonzaga has had to play without Braden Huff and Graham Ike the last 2 games, one against a very good defense in Seattle, one against a not very good defense in Pepperdine, the Zags haven't shot it very well. They are 11 of 38 from 3 in those 2 games. That is 29% from 3. So San Francisco holds teams to 31.5%. Gonzaga, without their two bigs, shoots 29%. It's not a great combination of facts when heading into this basketball game. Adam Miller's been 1 of 11 in these last two games. In the last 5 games, Steele Venters has gone 5 of 17. They have been struggling in this new look offense. There has not been consistency from the perimeter. Mario had a great game against Seattle U. They really needed it. But overall, they shot 5 of 20 against Pepperdine. Like, this has not been a good three-point shooting team since they have had the injuries to their front court stars. This is a game where they're not going to get as easy looks around the rim as they did against Pepperdine. And while I think Davis Vogel can score on this team, I think Tyon can score on this team, I think they'll find ways to get out in transition. Ultimately, they're going to need the outside shot more than they've needed it the last 2 games. And if it doesn't show up in this game, they could have some trouble getting that 34th straight win over this team. Key number 2 for Gonzaga is to take care of the rock, because this is a strength for Gonzaga and a weakness for San Francisco. So you got to capitalize. Because again, the last couple of games, while Gonzaga has played a new look offense, turnovers have become an issue. In fact, in 3 of Gonzaga's last 7 games, they have had 13 or more turnovers. Yes, obviously they weren't missing the bigs for all of those games, but they had 14 turnovers against Seattle U on Saturday, their first game without both Graham and Braden. Now, they only had 7 turnovers against Pepperdine. Pepperdine, not a good defensive team, so that helped Gonzaga be able to take better care of the basketball. And again, San Francisco is not a great defensive team either. They're better defensively than they are in terms of generating turnovers. Right now, they are only forcing turnovers 14% of the time. That is the 339th mark in college basketball, meaning that there are only about 24 teams in the country, 23 teams in the country that are better at, or that are worse at generating turnovers than San Francisco. This team doesn't force turnovers. That's just not what they do. Meanwhile, Gonzaga only turns the ball over about 14% of the time as well. That is the 14th best mark in college basketball. So Gonzaga is a top 15 team at avoiding turnovers. San Francisco is a bottom 25 team in terms of generating turnovers. That means you just can't beat yourself. Don't make stupid turnovers. Don't catch a pass while you're standing on the out of bounds line. Don't make a super errant pass that flies over somebody's head. Don't commit stupid offensive fouls 25 feet away from the rim. These are all things we've seen Gonzaga do in the last couple of games, and they're mistakes that happen in college basketball games. It's not like you can never have them, but in a game like this, against a team that doesn't really do a good job of forcing you to turn the ball over, you just can't beat yourself. Remember, San Francisco's gets steals 7.5% of the time. That's 328. Like, this is not a team that generates steals, that pokes the ball loose, that gets you to turn the ball over. Just don't make those same mistakes and you will be fine. Key number 3 for Gonzaga, secure second chance opportunities. This is an area, San Francisco is a decent rebounding team. They're not great at getting offensive rebounds, but they're darn good at getting defensive rebounds. They limit opponents on the offensive glass. Currently, teams against San Francisco are getting offensive rebounds just 28% of the time. That is 65th best in college basketball. This is a good defensive rebounding team. Meanwhile, Gonzaga grabs offensive rebounds much higher clip than that. 37.3% of the time, the Zags get an offensive board. That's 24th in the sport. They're a top 25 offensive rebounding team going up against a team that's top 70 in terms of preventing offensive boards. The key factor here, as it has been in every conversation we have had over the last week and a half, is that Gonzaga will be without Braden Huff. Braden Huff leads the Zags in offensive rebounds, averages nearly 3 per game. No Huff will be an issue. Ismaila Diagne is a monster rebounder. He grabbed 8 rebounds in his first start against Seattle on Saturday. He grabbed 10 rebounds against Pepperdine on Wednesday. He played 20 minutes in both those games. So in the 41 minutes, I believe it is total, that he's played in those 2 games, he's gotten 18 rebounds. This dude is a absolute beast around the rim. He's a good offensive rebounder. He's a good defensive rebounder. But he's got to stay on the floor. He's got to avoid foul trouble, which he managed to do against Pepperdine. Probably going to be a more difficult task against San Francisco. If he can stay on the floor and gobble up some offensive rebounds, you need a good rebounding game from Tyon. You need a good rebounding game from Worley. And Mark Few specifically called out Davis Vogel, not in a super negative way, but he mentioned Vogel specifically of like, hey, he's one of our bigger guys right now, and he needs to do a better job on the glass. So another player that Gonzaga is looking to do more on the boards with, and hopefully will help Gonzaga get more of those second chance opportunities. Key number 4 for Gonzaga, get off to a fast start. This has been a huge area that they have struggled since the calendar flipped to 2026. In these last 2 games in particular, when they're running their new look offense, they were down 6-2 at the under 16 media timeout in the first half against Seattle U. In the second half, at the under 16 media timeout, Seattle U had scored 1 bucket. Gonzaga had made 2 free throws. That was it. It's 2-2 in the second half, 5 minutes into that game. Similar story against Pepperdine. Gonzaga was up 8-6 at the under 16 media timeout. And then in the second half, they had outscored Pepperdine 8-7 at the media timeout. Again, considering that in the first 5 minutes of the first half, first 5 minutes of the second half, roughly. So 10 minutes of action, Gonzaga outscored Pepperdine by 3. In the other 30 minutes of action, they outscored them by 21. So a pretty good indication of them just not delivering in the start of halves. I don't think you can get away with that against the Dons. You have to be better to start this game. It's at home. There's going to be a big crowd. It's going to be probably the most ruckus home crowd Gonzaga has had since mid-December, maybe even earlier than that. Gonzaga hasn't had a lot of opportunities to have big thundering crowds at home this season with not playing a lot of super competitive games at home. Creighton is probably the biggest one, and that was way back on November 11th. Bring it. You got to bring it for this game, and for the fans will be behind you. They always are. That's part of what makes the Kennel crowd so great. But give them something to cheer for early in this game and make that Don team feel it as soon as that clock starts. And then key number 5, we talked about how we're going to mention this. You got to lock in on Tyrone Riley IV. Ryan Beasley is the best player for San Francisco, but the way that San Francisco wins this game is by Tyrone Riley IV having a big game. He is their key to winning this game. The winning formula for San Francisco is Riley going off. He's a 6'6", uber athletic, high flying wing. As a freshman last year, averaged 9.5 points per game. He entered the transfer portal. Mark Pope in Kentucky were calling. Florida, Todd Golden was calling. Like, the biggest names in the sport were all over Tyrone Riley, and he chose to stay at San Francisco. And while his name hasn't really popped off the screen that much, he has been darn good in his second season under Coach Gerlofson. He's averaging 12 points per game, shooting 55% on 2-pointers, 43% from 3 on over 3 attempts per game as a 6'6" wing who can fly up and down the floor. This kid is a matchup problem. And again, Ryan Beasley's steady and solid and good. And if he has a good shooting night, that's a problem for Gonzaga. But I can almost guarantee you that if there is a way that San Francisco wins this basketball game, it is with Tyrone Riley going off. I suspect that Jalen Worley will draw the defensive assignment against Tyrone Riley. Now, Riley's he's kind of their 2 guard. They switched their starting lineup a handful of times this year. The Cook injury certainly played a role in that. I'm guessing that Legend Smiley is starting now. He's 6'5", so I think he's kind of the 2 and Riley is the 3. I think that Smith will start on Ryan Beasley. I think Inocente will start on Smiley, and I think Worley will start on Tyrone Riley here. That would put Adam Miller on Vukasin Masic, who's a 6'5" wing, kind of sort of plays the 3-4, and that would put Ismaila Diagne on Barry Wong, their starting center, who's only 6'8". Again, Guillermo Diaz-Graham comes off the bench, but he's their true 7-footer. I think he'll play big minutes in this game as well. But you got to lock in on Riley. Worley will get a big chance to guard him, I think. I think Inocente will get opportunities on him. I think Tyron Grant Foster will get opportunities on him as well. But you got to shut this kid down because if he has a big game, that's the best avenue to an upset being pulled off by the Dons in this one. Well, folks, Drew Timme killing it right now for the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James has taken notice. We'll talk about what he said and what Drew's been doing, as well as some other Zags in the NBA updates to close out the show and the week coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax's full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person and connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives you real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it all for you. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't do your taxes last year, you just got to file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Space Needle. Folks, Pint and a Pie at the Space Needle is the perfect pregame spot before your Seattle action. After 4 p.m., the Space Needle's Pint and a Pie gives you the whole package: entry, a savory or sweet tip-top pie, and a pint of beer, wine, or a non-alcoholic drink, all for just $35 per person. Pint and a Pie is your launch pad to game night at Gonzaga's home away from home. The Space Needle is Seattle's most iconic destination, not just for the views, but for evening fun. And rather than trying to cram into a crowded sports bar right beforehand, why not just enjoy a little space and a great view with your favorite beverage? Create a pregame story as iconic as the Space Needle itself. Look out over the city and look down at Climate Pledge Arena before you head inside. Whether it's date night, friend night, or you're just here for the deal of it all, come take your place on the horizon. $35 per person, limited time offer, 21 plus only, ID required. Get your tickets at spaceneedle.com, minimum 2 required. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. And we're closing out the show talking about some NBA Zags. Notably, we're talking about legend Drew Timme. Because Drew Timme, just like he did last year when the Brooklyn Nets finally gave him an opportunity to play professional basketball at the highest level in the NBA, and he killed it. Well, this year, he ended up with the South Bay Lakers of the NBA G League. And after putting up like 30 and 15 every single game, and I'm not even exaggerating, he was pretty much putting up 30 points and 14 or 15 rebounds every single night. The Lakers signed him to a 2-way contract and promoted him to the show to play for the NBA club. And Drew Timme's been doing what Drew Timme does, man. He is finding ways to contribute positively for this Los Angeles Lakers team. He played 6 games so far in the month of January, and he had some monster performances, including an excellent game against the Portland Trail Blazers back on January 17th. Big Drew had 21 points in that game. He didn't start. He scored 21 points off the bench for the Lakers. He had 4 assists, 2 boards, 2 steals. He was 9 of 12 from the field, that trademark efficiency from Drew, but more crucially for Timme, 3 of 4 from 3, knocking down open shots from the perimeter. He had one play where Rui got a rebound, brought it down the court, kicked it out to Drew Timme on the baseline, drilled a 3. Just some zag on zag crime by the Lakers in this game. Really fun stuff. He also had a game where he had 9 points in just 11 minutes against the Denver Nuggets and former teammate Julian Strawther. In that game, Drew, I think he had 7 of his 9 points in the first 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes of entering the game. He basically came into the game, immediately started scoring buckets. He was 4 of 6 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3 in that game. He had 3 boards as well. I believe it was after that game in particular that LeBron was asked about Drew Timme and the performance that he has had this season. LeBron said, quote, "He's a smart player. He knows how to play the game. His IQ correlates." LeBron was also asked if players like Drew Timme kind of stepping up and having a big contribution to this team kind of help over the course of an 82-game season. You kind of need guys, to step up and have performances like this in order to just kind of keep going. And it was a long question that the reporter asked, and LeBron, who I don't know if he's got a beef with Coach Redick or not, I don't know what's going on there, but LeBron looked at the reporter dead in the eye and said, "If we play him more." That was it. That was his whole response to the question. Sounds like a vote of support from one of the greatest, if not the greatest player in basketball history for our guy, Drew Timme. Cool to see that happening for the Laker legend. Drew now played 18 career games in the NBA, 9 with Brooklyn, 9 with the Lakers. In 18 minutes per game, he's averaging 8 points, 4 boards, 1.5 assists, 56% from 2, 32% from 3. Great to see Big Drew thriving at the game's highest level. Also great to see Domantas Sabonis back in action for the Sacramento Kings. Sabonis, Gonzaga's only other multi-time All-Star outside of John Stockton, 3-time All-Star, All-NBA player with the Sacramento Kings. Sabonis went down with an injury back on November 16th and finally returned to the floor for Sacramento on January 16th. So he missed exactly 2 months of action, has played just 3 games since returning from that injury. It was a knee injury, and Sacramento is babying him along. I don't blame them. They're not playing for anything already. Sacramento is way out of the picture here. And for the Kings, they're just trying to get Domantas back in game shape. He's come off the bench in all 3 of his games since returning. He's played 21 minutes, 20 minutes, and 17 minutes in those 3 games. He's still been productive, 13.6 rebounds, 5 assists in 21 minutes against the Wizards, 8 points, 8 boards against Portland in 20 minutes, and then 6 points, 10 boards, 3 assists in 17 minutes against Miami. Nice to see him back. He did not play in the second game of a back-to-back against Toronto, which again is probably part of that reintegration plan for Sacramento. But I love watching Domantas Sabonis play basketball, so I'm happy to see him back on the floor for the Kings, even if it is in a limited role, at least for now. Well, a few weeks ago or last week, we talked about Corey Kispert getting traded from the Washington Wizards to the Atlanta Hawks, the first time that Corey Kispert has been on the move in his 5-year NBA career. And he's struggled a little bit since getting to Atlanta. Not a huge shock, midseason trades. Often guys take a little time to acclimate to their new home, their new environment, their new coaching staff, their new teammates. A lot of new things going on for Corey. He has played in just 6 games since getting back to Atlanta, started 2 of them, playing about 18 minutes a game, averaging about 8 points, 2 boards, 1.5 assists per game, but efficiency is way down, 57% on 2s when he shot 67.5% on 2s with Washington. He's also only shooting 31% from 3, despite shooting about 40% from 3 with the Wizards. Again, this will get better. Corey's going to find his way. He's still got 3 years left on this contract. So if Atlanta likes him, they're going to keep him around, and he's going to be a part of the future here with the Hawks. And I think he's a valuable player for them to have, even with the depth they have in the front court or in the small forward position with Jalen Johnson and Zachary Richache in particular. But obviously Kispert, a guy who's going to play better than what he has done so far in just 6 games with the Hawks. And then last update for NBA guys here, the Nembhards continue to kill it. In the NBA, Ryan Nembhard in his rookie season with the Dallas Mavericks, still on a 2-way contract. Recently against the Utah Jazz, had a game where he had 8 points, 10 assists, and 4 boards. He also had a game where he had 9 points, 8 assists on 4 of 8 shooting in 22 minutes against the Brooklyn Nets. So far in his rookie season, Ryan has played 31 games, has started 17 of those 31 games. Again, an undrafted free agent on a 2-way contract, starting 17 games for this Dallas team, averaging 7.5 points, 5.2 assists, and shooting 39.5% from 3 for Ryan. Meanwhile, his older brother Andrew continues to have a career season as the primary go-to guard for the Indiana Pacers following the ACL injury to Tyrese Halliburton in Game 7 of the NBA Finals last year. Halliburton will miss the entire regular season. Indiana is terrible this year, but it's not because of Andrew Nembhard. He has been great, averaging 17.5 points, 7 assists, 2.7 rebounds, 35.5% from 3 in 35 games. Recent performances include a 25.5 assist, 9 of 15 shooting night against the Philadelphia 76ers, as well as a 19.10 assist, 3 rebound, 7 of 13 shooting game against the Pelicans back on January 16th. Great to continue to see the success of the Nembhard brothers at the game's highest level. Folks, that's going to wrap it up for me today and for this week here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Be back with you all on Sunday evening following Gonzaga's game against the Dons of San Francisco. We'll talk about that game and we'll get you ready for a big week for the Zags next week, including next Saturday's showdown to end the month of January at home against the Gales of St. Mary's. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.